And if we didn't meet last week at our first session, I'll introduce myself again. My name is Jim Flynn, and it's my great honor to be the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Simsbury Free Library. And as I did mention last week, we at the library are absolutely ecstatic to be part of continuing education. We love to talk about our library. And at our first session last week, we did. We talked all about the library, some of the famous personages, et cetera, et cetera. And if you weren't here, I regret that, but I'm glad you could make it tonight. Tonight we're going to leave the library and go about, what, how many miles? 3 or 4 miles east, southeast of here, and learn all about that.
No, don't say the name.
I'm not, I never would. That tower, a tower that we all know, that sits on top of either Talcott or Avon Mountain, depending on who you talk to. And we're very lucky tonight to have with us Jay Warren. Jay is not only a great friend of this library, but he's also the president of the board of directors of the Friends of that tower. So let's give Jay a warm welcome.
Thank you, Jim. I want you to, I'm going to start off by being a history teacher. Think about your days in high school or college, and when your teacher gave you 3 chapters to read, and all of a sudden have a pop quiz. Can you hear me? No. You know, the mic is for the camera.
Can you hear him?
I'll just talk a little louder.
Try again, Jay.
Okay. How's this? Okay. So I'm going to give you a pop quiz, and there's the question, what's the name of the tower? Yeah, one at a time, because there are 4 right answers, which is good. You have a better chance. So whoever raises their hand with a correct answer gets a prize. That didn't happen in high school or college. So what's the first one?
Hublin Tower.
Yep, there's one. Another one? All right, that's 2. There's 2 more. Knew there would be dead silence. So Highline is the family name. Hublin, which I'll discuss here in a few minutes, is the corporation name. But the correct Bavarian pronunciation is Heublein. And I don't know what it is. I grew up in Avon in the 60s. I didn't know it is any of those. That was the Times Tower. And they owned it after the Highline family. Oops. So that's really supposed to be the first slide. There's no question there. So these are some of the things we're going to be talking about. Friends of Highline Tower, that's us. The family, Highline the corporation, Hublin the corporation actually. History of the previous towers, the tower as we know it today, and the Times Tower. And then the next owner was the series of private owners, and what happened to that. And the present owner is the state of Connecticut. And what do we have next? And then questions and answers. So who are we? We were formed in 1984 by Pat Highline, and she was married to one of the original Highlines. So she thought there was a need for preservation, and we knew that she knew that the state had bought it, and that it was going to be a public park and just needed to be preserved. So she formed the Friends of Highline Tower. And what do? We're a nonprofit. We do a lot of the research, a lot of the restoration projects that go on up there. We help augment the state wherever we can. So here's, not only do we do the restoration and recreation, but we do things like this. We try to educate people about all the things that happen up at the tower. And there's a lot of history up there. This is our board, all local people. And I want you to notice, I'm going to go back a little bit here. I want you to notice this elevation. That's the south elevation. Look at the windows in the shaft of the tower. There's a center row, and then there's 2 flanking rows. Thank you. So when the state bought it, it was in pretty much heavy disrepair. A lot of repairs needed to take place. In the 70s, they did that, but they changed the window orientation. And even these 3 round top windows off to the right side, they changed those orientations. Those were originally doors out onto small balconies, and they put double hung windows then. And we don't like to do that. We like to do the original style, as you'll see. And back on the original elevation, there was a chimney that went dead center up the south side and exited out near the top. That's no longer there, unfortunately. This is our board from a couple years ago. Gentleman on the left is Rick Willard from Weathersfield. He was one of the original people that were on one of the original board members. And the woman on the right is Louise Jakes, and she is Louise as in named after Louise Heiblein. Her grandparents were the original caretakers up there. One of our good volunteers, Kent Robbins, oops, sorry about that. Washing windows, he's done so many things up there. Some of our board members were selling t-shirts for a fundraiser. Coming up, we have a Tower Toot every fall, 3rd weekend in the fall, in October. And just to give you an idea how many people we have up there, we were told 25 years ago when I started that we get about 120,000 people up there in a year. Well, I've been tracking how much the state parks have grown over the years, especially during COVID. And we estimate now we get 250,000 people up there in a year. And during COVID, the beginning of COVID, people would either text me, email me, call me and say, what's going on up at the tower? It's bursting at the seams. I have no idea what's going on. It just, people needed to get out. They needed to get out and socialize, even at 6 feet, whatever it took. If we didn't have our state parks, we'd be in trouble. This is, go ahead. Yes,
That quarter minute, does that include people who just casually climb it and don't have any interaction with the building itself, or are they extra?
Good question. That 250,000 is just people that go up on a hike. They may not go into the building. The building may not be open. We only get the building's only open 4 days a week during June, July, August, September, October. So it's really only open half of the year. And we get about 5,000 people in there a year, and that's it. And actually we get, in 2019, we did, well, every year we do a tally, but 2019, we got people from all 50 states and from 48 countries. So here we have the Tower Toot, and Tara's singing away, not really. But we serve food. It's a very family-oriented event. We've also done a couple of years, we did a plein air, and that was really a lot of fun, exposure for a lot of artists, local artists. Here's an artist with a young future artist. Kate Tortland with one of her paintings.
Beautiful.
One of the events we do usually in the end of the summer is called Hike to the Mic. One of our board members' daughter, she might have been 10, 12 or so, came up with the idea, and she showed it to us at a board meeting. And it was a simple sketch, and it was a sketch of the tower and a pathway leading up to it. And she said, I think you should have a musical event up there, and we'll call it Hike to the Mic. And there's so many bands out there that are just looking for a break, little exposure. We pay them a very nominal fee. We get sponsors to help augment that. And it's a weekend long, it's a Saturday and a Sunday. And the bands love it, and the people love it. It's typically a full house. We have a little stage, electronics. And this is in the croquet court just south of the tower. And people you can either stay the whole day, there's food and drinks available, and you can either stay the day or just come and see a band and go home. One of the interesting things we found, we'd always heard that there were hops up at the tower. And these are hop plants, and the kind of tan buds are hops. And we have not done a DNA test on them, but we feel that since Gilbert was from Germany, from Bavaria primarily, he could have gone back, and he was back and forth all the time. He could have easily just gotten some plants and stuffed them in his luggage and brought them here. And it'd be interesting to see if these were truly from Bavaria. So what did we do with the hops? Of course, we had to brew them. And we had a party actually here, how many years ago now? And one of the people that we invited was a friend of Tara's and mine, and he ends up running a beer and wine distribution company. So a friend of mine had brewed for us, and Matt and I were clued in on what's Dave gonna think of this beer. So Dave took that first sip and he goes, oh. And Matt and I are like, uh-oh, it's really bad, because Matt had not tested it. And he goes, you really have to do something with this. This is really good. We haven't yet. We continually get press. Here I am with Gino. That was from Hartford Magazine a few years ago. Some of the things we do that's mostly exposure, but we try to do projects. And these are the beginning of 4 copper-capped lanterns that cover lights that were originally there that have long since disappeared. So here we are, as an architect, I was asking people to donate services or if they could give it to us at cost. Well, no one gave it to us at cost. Everybody donated to them. The only thing we had to do is pay for some of these nuts and bolts. I think we spent like $500. And we did have someone that said, oh, I could probably give you a quote for them, and there'd be about $5,000 a piece. So we were all set, ready to spend maybe $20,000 for these. Well, Kent and one other board member and myself, I think we spent about almost 200 hours making these things. Here's Kent again, drilling holes to run the electric. And here they are. So those, if you look at the pictures, which you'll see, they are exactly what was there. And Kent, of course, being from Robbins Hardwood Floor, we'd always heard that the observation level was an oak parquet, white oak parquet floor. We had no proof of that. We had lots of pictures, but the pictures back then were very grainy. We just couldn't definitively see if that was true. So, and the state had come in, had to put a new staircase in for fire reasons, and ripped up the whole original floor and covered it with vinyl asbestos tile, which we all know about. So we worked a deal with the state. They were able to remove the tile, and lo and behold, what's there? The original nailing pattern. And that's what it looked like. Oops, let me go back there. Pretty nice. And if you notice, all the walls are back to the original raw wood or varnished wood. because when the Times bought it, they ended up painting all that, as you'll see. Very typical of that era. One of the things we've come across, a man shows up at one of our board members with 60 original drawings of the tower. This is one of them. And this is the 1921 edition. So we have all the 1921 and 1928 editions. We do not have any of the original drawings for the tower, unfortunately. So when I got there, this is what we saw to the servants' entrance, just boarded up, just plywood. That's all that was there. The original one had long since rotted away. There it is in one of the pictures, early pictures, and you can kind of see that it may have had a storm door as well. Here's a blow-up of the picture of the original drawings. And you notice there's great bracketing for hinges. So here I was able to take that drawing, blow it up, clean it up, and recreate these. We had someone donate these as well. Here it is done. That's the kind of work we like to do. So one of the other things we've done a lot of painting up there, which is just very simple, very easy. But nothing's easy for us, and nothing's very simple for us, because we want to go back to the original colors. So what I did is I went and scraped some of the original paint off and sent it away, and the people doing the analysis go all the way back to the original color. They can tell whether it's an oil base or a water base, and they even give me a match to the Benjamin Moore color. So that's not the original color. The floor was not green. I think every room was kind of like a lavender color, because I think the state ended up, getting like 55 gallons of paint. There was just one color. I don't know. Yeah. So here it is done. So back to the original colors, not only on the floor, on the ceilings, but on the walls, on the trim as well. And those three windows, hopper windows were long gone. That's another project we did. And also the three round top windows on the right had been rotted out, and the state was going to replace them with, just because that's what was there. Well, it's not what was there. And I looked back in the original drawings, and that was originally an open sunroom. But then a subsequent drawing shows that as having two side lights, a door, and a round top window. So that's what we went back to. And one of the other rooms that we have, that was originally on the second floor, is now up to the third floor, is a corporate room. And some of the things that we have is, these were the doors to the front door at the corporation. One of the other things that we have are a couple of the original copper mugs. And ironically, Tara's dad used to sell glass bottles to dairy farms. And when that was drying up, his last big account was Highline. So these are actually from John Martin, who was Gilbert's grandson. Some of the other things we have there, a couple of the mugs. What else is there? In the lower right-hand corner, A1 steak sauce, which they were very well known for. The reason why we took the corporate room and went from the second floor to the third floor was this was Louise's bedroom, Gilbert's wife. And back in the days, don't forget, this is kind of during the end of the Victorian era. Husband and wife slept in different bedrooms. And this was her bedroom, which we restored. And actually, ironically, there was one of the twin beds was in the tower, And just before we decided to do this, I got a call from someone, random person. I think I have one of the original Highline beds. Do you want it? Well, of course. But it was green. It was that floor that you saw in the sunroom. It was that color green. And I said, oh, well, it is what it is. If it matches the one downstairs, it's great. It's not, and it did. And come to find out, someone said, I think all of her furniture was dark wood, and she had it all hand painted in a floral design. So we got some guy to strip it, donated his time, and stripped both beds, which, you look at all the spindles, everything got stripped. There's not an ounce of the original paint or the green paint. So those are back up there. And then I ended up doing a very similar talk to Avon Historical Society. And they asked me to come by for Avon Days. And they had a nice gift for me of a bottle and a knife from the Highline Hotel. And I was just grabbed a lunch with a friend of mine and a fellow architect. And I got to the restaurant before he comes in behind me and drops this on the table and kind of slams it down. It's really pretty heavy glass. And it's Wilshire Dry Gin, Highline Brothers. He was out at a job site. They were digging for the foundation. This is what he came up with. That's one to go into the display case. We also have a gift shop up there where we sell things, copper mugs, shot glasses, amongst many other things. Great hiking sticks. So some of the things we've done and hopefully are going to continue doing. 2023, which is just the beginning of COVID, or just in the really height of COVID, we lit the beacon. There was always a beacon up there from at least the 60s, not original to Highline, but it was really very much an icon that people associated with when they flew home. They could see the beacon, they knew they were home. They could see the tower, they knew they were home. So we, years prior, I had gone up to the tower and because none of the state employees wanted to change the bulb. So we did it. And what am I doing 165 feet up in the air? And look at Tara, she's shaking her head. I have a young family, young wife, and I'm like up there on my tippy toes up in the cupola, changing this. It was about that big around, probably about almost 3 feet tall. And there's a big wing nut and it swings away, and that's how you change the bulb. Well, I swing it away, I didn't realize it was full of water. So here I am, 165 feet in the air, on my tippy toes. Yeah, she's still shaking her head, and playing with water. So I immediately swung it back up, and I went to the park supervisor. I said, I'm not doing that anymore. We're getting an LED light, which he did. And it's nice to see again. And as I said to Tara, I said, when our kids were little and we would go by it, and I think it was Maggie said, well, that's how Rudolph knows how to get to our house. As you can see, we did the one of the south doors. We also did one similar to the east side, the boiler room door. And we were trying to work with the state to try to get more land up there. That really, unfortunately, did not happen. One of the other projects that we're working on, not sure if it's going to happen for this 4th of July, but we're trying, is I found the original flagpole. My co-president in the fall would always walk around with all the board members and just give a little narration as to what she knew up there. And she was up there since, I think, a couple years after the corporation was formed. And she would talk about it, and it was a great way for us to learn about it. Excuse me. So we're in the woods, and as you'll see in a few minutes, we're up against this huge vessel, for lack of a better term. Big riveted steel, about 5.5 feet in diameter, maybe 12, 15 feet long. And she said, I think this is the boiler. And I'm like, there's no, and I didn't want to, and she was a lovely lady. I didn't really want to immediately say, no, that's can't be. But there's no way that boiler or that vessel could have gotten into the building. There were no doors big enough. And I said, I think it's a water cistern. And I told her why. And I'm standing there talking to her, and I'm kind of rocking back and forth and a little uneasy. So I kicked the leaves away. It was a pretty thick pile. And I see that there's a pipe, maybe 8-9 inches in diameter. And I'm like, oh, and Catherine said, oh, maybe that's the piping for it. I said, well, again, I don't think the piping needs to be that big for such a small building, even though it's 8,000 square feet. So I brush the leaves away further down, and it goes from 8 inches down to 9 inches, or from 9 inches down to 8 inches, down to 7 inches. It keeps going and going. I pace it out 85 feet. We found the original flagpole. What else is there? One of the things we want to do is restore the lobby walls. As you'll see, there's a great picture that I can share with you. A cell phone tour. Everybody has a cell phone, so it's really hard for us to get up there and do a narration. It'd be nice if you had just used your cell phone. And live cupola views. Again, we'd like to get 4 cameras up there. You know, people are interested in the weather, so you can just get on the internet, go to our website, and see what's coming in. So, the High Blind family.
Next question.
Yes,
How tall is the mountain and how tall is the tower?
165 feet tall.
Okay. And at what elevation does it start?
The base of the tower is at 920, I think. So basically about 1,000 feet. So one of the things that I had worked on, still working on, is the family tree. And the upper left corner is Gilbert's dad, and which I'll zoom in on. And it's now into its 7th generation, and I think there are about 170 squares. So it basically calls, you know, what your name is, if you're married, who's your wife, when you're born, when you died, and where you're buried. This is Andrew, Gilbert's father. Andrew was the one that brought his family from Bavaria. Ended up coming into New Haven, started a restaurant, and it expanded, kind of an entrepreneur. Here's his wife, Lena. Here's Andrew's Gilbert's brother. Gilbert's brother also in the business, GF, or no, that's Andrew and GF. Here's Gilbert, owner of the tower. His wife, Louise. As I said, Louise Jakes is named after Louise. Skipping a generation, this is John G. Barton, Gilbert and Louise's grandson, who was born in Britain. And he was a very well respected, recognized war hero, great businessman. He was brought over because none of Gilbert and Louise's children wanted to take over the business. It was a family-run business, and Gilbert wanted to keep it in the family. So he brought John Martin over, and he was groomed to run the business. And this is where they're buried, in Cedar Hill. Whoops. This is Gilbert and Louise's house. Oh gosh, I forgot the name of the street. Prospect, thank you. This was restored. You can see it's got a nice coat of paint on it, nice and neat. And shortly after it was restored, we got a call from Bob and his wife, and I can't remember her name. And would you like to see it? As friends of the tower. I said absolutely. So we're there and we're having some libations and light fare. And I just asked, I said, Bob, where'd you move from? And he goes, up in Harwington. And he goes, I was there only a couple years, and the guy across the street, who's gone now, he used to just throw these wild, fun parties. And I said, oh. Now, Bob lives in this house at that point. And I knew who he was talking about. And I told him that. And he goes, how do you know? I said, because Gilbert's grandson, John G. Martin, lived across the street from you. And he goes, no wonder he throws these great parties. Had great access to all the booze, all the great booze you could want. Had his DC-3 parked down in Johnny Cake Airport that he would take off and go off to do his business. Small world. And off to the right, you can see was the barn. And actually, that was one of the, had a turntable in it for the Heiblein family horses and carriages. On the side of the house. Beautiful home, beautiful. Did a great job of restoring it. Heublein, the company. There's their first business. They came here and had a hotel. That's how it started for them. The lobby. Interesting to note how the gentlemen are hats and coats. They had a Rathskeller.
What street it was on?
Was that in Hartford?
It was in Hartford. It was on Bushnell Park. I can't remember the name of the street. Here's one of their menus. This is the corporation's first business as they got into beer, wine, and spirits. As you can see by the sign. Here's their second location on Trumbull Avenue. They were growing. On Broad Street, their third business. You notice how the design of buildings have changed quite a bit. I think they probably had that one built for them in a modern design. They're fourth on New Park Avenue. Some of the bottling, packaging. There's the bottling. Some of the storage vats, processing tanks. Look how clean it is. Don't see that today. And the last one, you all know, going up 84 in Farmington. Now when Heibleins chose to sell it in 1985, it was still a family-owned business. And I'm going to go back to John G. Martin for a second. John G. Martin in 1934 ended up paying a pretty hefty amount to a gentleman in Bethel, Connecticut, $34,000 back then, for a recipe for clear liquor. Everybody else was doing rye, whiskeys, bourbons, brown liquor. This was clear. And his recipe was from a guy named Peter Smirnoff. So that $34,000, plus a lot of other things, the corporation sold for $1.4 billion in 1984. Talking about some of the previous towers, if you look up here, let's see if it works. Did I turn it off? It's not working. There's a tower up there. That's the first tower, 1910. That was on the land of Daniel Wadsworth, of Wadsworth Athenaeum fame. That blew down in, I think, 1830s. But you can see the picture of Montevideo and the pond. That was Wadsworth House. Here it is. The building to the right is no longer, but the buildings to the left, the center and left, are still standing up there. They're part of the caretakers' buildings that are up there. Big red barns, beautiful barns. This was the second tower. That was destroyed by fire.
What did they use the towers for? Was it like
I'm sorry?
lookouts or?
The first one was just a lookout, because when you're up there, you can see all the way up to New York, all the way up into Massachusetts. You can't see the sound, but you can see Sleeping Giant, which is down in Hamden. So there was just a lookout.
Well, I don't know if this is relevant, but I think of like stories during the beginning of the American Revolutionary War where they kind of have, bonfires or something to tell the guys to come because it's like the British or whatever. And I think of a tower,
No, but we have an urban myth which is a little similar in that Gilbert did his tower in 1914, and if you go back to, I'm not going to do it because it's too far back. You look at that south elevation. There's no windows up in the attic on that side. There are windows on the east, north, and west side up there. So one of the myths was, of course, he was German. That was World War I era, and there was a family in Center of Avon called the Candles family, and there were two brothers, Lothar and Carl. Carl was a little rambunctious kid, and their father worked for Avonville Farms as a chef. And for some reason, I don't know, I guess I'm not that rambunctious, Carl would take his mother's laundry and flip it. I don't know why. So someone said, he's sending signals up to Highline, and Highline sending signals because Highline had a big searchlight on the west side, up in the attic, that he could say, I wonder if Jimmy's up, and flip the searchlight on and shine it on his house. So he thought, or this person who came up with the urban myth thought that that Highline was sending signals down to the subs in Long Island Sound. Totally couldn't happen. The window wasn't there. The searchlight was on the other side. And Gilbert said, anytime anybody wants to come up here and see my house, it's all about. And we feel that might have been the spur to have him put up that big flagpole. The original flagpole is 85 feet tall. So here's the other, this is the second tower. And these are all very close proximity to the south croquet court.
Uncle Jay,
Yes.
So when you say this is the second tower, did they knock down the original and build up another one, or did they renovate, or how did it work?
First one blew down, second one burned down.
So they had to resurrect it.
In different fashion, you know, they burned down or blew down. So here's the third one, very different. They all got a little bit taller, a little bit bigger. And on the third tower, they had a dance floor. It was very much more of a public place where you could bring your horse and buggy up, and they would take care of that. And you could sit there and either have a picnic or dance on the dance floor.
So now, one follow-up, and not to get ahead of
Yep.
ourselves. What iteration are we on now? With the one that's currently there? This is the fourth? Fourth tower?
This one's actually the fifth. I'll get to the fourth in a second.
Pardon me.
That's all right. Prices. This doesn't really sound very good, but a meal with cold meat, 75 cents. Lunch without meat, 40 cents. Not really appetizing, but back then, it is what it is. So this is back in the late 1800s, 1870s. That's all that's left of one of them. There's the fourth tower. That was a Bartlett tower as well. And I think that burned. Is that right? When? Anybody know? I can't remember about that one. There's part of the foundation is still there. I do know that.
Well, the other thing is they're up on the tower, so they didn't have any way to get water to put anything out.
No.
So if it caught fire, it wasn't going to be.
It just burned. So Heimlein Tower. So this is back in Bavaria, which is where Gilbert's family's from. You can see some of the similarities, not only shape of the roof, but the way that top part overhangs a little bit. Here it is under construction, probably 1913. And I was thinking about this today. How'd they get that stuff up there? I mean, granted, there was a driveway, which there is still. But you think of, you know, was it a horse and buggy? I've really got to research this. Or was it a truck? But I think the trucks probably had maybe a 25, 30 horse motor. I can't imagine them hauling all this stuff up. But they did, got it built.
Is that steel or?
And that's riveted iron. And it's designed to withstand 100-mile-an-hour winds.
What are the strongest winds that have ever been clocked up there? Or you have no way of clocking?
I don't know. I don't think the state doesn't have a.
You have a weather.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we want to have cameras up there, so at least you can see what's going on. You know, we're all interested in what's the weather going to be like tonight. You know, when we walk out.
I have a question.
Yes.
How did I get hit by lightning?
Oh my God, did it?
I'll take that as a yes.
And I'm sure you might remember New Year's Eve 4 years ago, Tara? About 20 minutes after midnight. I've lived here all my life. I've never seen such a bright flash or a boom like that one. It hit the tower. Tower's protected, but it went through the cables and rods and everything. Just outside of the tower is a well, you know, big 10, 12-inch steel pipe, melted. You know, it just had some electrical things, but yeah, it's designed to really take a hit, but not like that. Wow. That was crazy. So here's the tower, nearly complete. Again, you can see dead center up on the top. Oh, there's no window there, so he can't send signals down to the subs. And there's the chimney there, and you can't see the copper cap lanterns yet because they're not there. The stone pillars are. Here it is when it's complete. So this is probably in the 30s, the tower's 1914. The first edition was 21. That went off to the east, and that was Gilbert's bedroom. Again, they slept separately. The sunroom up on the second floor. First floor was dining room, kitchen, and in the basement was 3 maids' quarters, because they just didn't come by themselves. They drove up in a couple different cars and had a chauffeur, a cook, 3 maids, just the way we go. And in 1928, there was a second edition, so the upper floor had, or the first floor had a dining and living room for the maids, a bedroom for the chauffeur, bedroom for the cook. And when you look to the bottom of the shot, kind of dead center is the water tower. So what they would do for water, because it's nothing but rock up there, they would pump water from Howe Pond, which is a good 3/4 of a mile away, up to the tower, and pump it to that big cistern that was to the east of the tower. And of course they had to drain all the pipes, during the winter, because they couldn't bury the pipes. They just laid it on the ground. And off to the left, in the lower left corner, is what they called summer homes, little gazebos. This is from the tower. There's still a garage there. It's a different iteration. 3-bay garage, and there was a 9-room caretaker's apartment up over it. And you can see further up above that is a two-story, 2-bay garage that were for John Sartori's. He had a dump truck and a bulldozer. And the bulldozer is how he got his kids to Montevideo Road for school. He would fire it up and chug away. There it is in original configuration. But unfortunately, when the state bought it, they were still living there, I believe. But the state did not like roofs, does not like roofs, and they tore that part down. Beautiful building, though.
Uncle Jay, is that where Sartori's Sports comes from, or is that separate?
I don't know that there's a connection. I don't know. Good question, though. There's John and Clementina. Their daughter Tosca. This is in the croquet court. They would flood it so she could skate. One of the other outbuildings. This is over the near the croquet court. There's another one. Oh, this is back to at the tower, overgrown with ivy. There you can see one of the copper lanterns, a couple of them. There's 4 of them. Here's a dining pavilion, very much in an Adirondack style, not in a Bavarian style. And underneath the floor there is a 40,000-gallon water cistern. 40,000 gallons will be a typical 20 by 40-foot pool, in-ground pool. That's a lot of water. This is out the west entrance. Here it is complete. Here's the inside. That wall to the right has been changed. They had to put a new stair in for fire reasons. The piano is interesting, at least for me, in that I didn't realize that, and this came after I told my mother that I was on the board, and she goes, "Well, your dad used to go up there all the time." And I said, "Really?" And he was a businessman at Connecticut General, but he played a wicked, mean jazz, honky-tonk, ragtime piano, and he would get invited to go up there to play for the parties. So he probably played there. So we still have the paneling upstairs over the garage. We'd love to get that back up there. Here's the observation room, which they call the ballroom. Notice that the walls are natural wood, even though it's black and white. And there's the fireplace up there. And of course, he had to have a wine cellar. That's down in the basement. There's the original flagpole, and down the bottom is a little gnome, little golfing gnome. Gilbert was known to have an affection with gnomes. He had a great, big, huge barbecue spit, big enough for good-sized animals, whether it's pig or lamb. And then further south, we think this may date back to Wadsworth era. This is no longer standing. It collapsed years ago because of the snow, but it's kind of nestled in a little bit of a hump in the land. You could oversee the pond, Wadsworth Pond, Howe Pond. There's that water cistern. It's pretty big. Then John G. Martin ended up taking over from on the tower because both of his parents died, or grandparents died, and sold her for back taxes to the Hartford Times. There's the editor-in-chief. And no, that's not Harry Truman to the left.
Yeah.
It looks like him. So Francis Murphy. So they ended up having a big, huge party up at the tower. Francis Murphy is the gentleman kind of dead center right. Just came from the airport, and it was dedicated. He was there because they dedicated the terminal, the Francis J. Murphy terminal, up at Bradley Airport. And this was the party that they asked Eisenhower to run for president. Nice bash. One of the other parties, very much an white man's club. Big clam, always did a big clam bake. There's a big trash pile out back full of clams. So there's Dwight. So he was president of Columbia University at that point when he was asked. And it was during this era that, Eisenhower was asked to be up there. Some of the other notables, Frank Lloyd Wright, Tallulah Bankhead, Robert Wagner, Admiral Nimitz, just to name a few. That's the chair that Eisenhower was asked to run for president. We still have that. And Ronald Reagan, he was president of the Screen Actors Guild at this point. I always like to have his picture taken with the ladies. And they ended up having to build this as a barbecue pit just for that party. There's a big stove in it. Here's the observation level during the Times era. Notice that it's all painted, all the woodwork is painted, very typical of that day. It had an elevator. It went from the first floor up to the, not to the floor, not to the observation level, just went one level below. That way it didn't interfere with any of the views. Oops. No. Here's the living room. Then the Times, Hartford Times sold it to 3 investors. They wanted to change the use of the tower to a restaurant and offices and build luxury homes and condominiums. And people on both sides of the ridge were not happy about that.
What year was that?
Early 60s, I believe. And the state stepped up and purchased it as a park. Ended up being in the 70s, early 70s, that they ended up restoring it. Restoring was a very different term back then than it is today.
So did the private investors own it and then sell it to the state?
Yes.
Or was it just Harper Times directly to the state?
No, it went from the Hartford Times to the private owners and then to the state, or to the state.
What was the sale price?
I don't recall. Good question. Here's one of our projects. This is up in Gilbert's bedroom. The left window was just about falling out from rot. Ended up reattaching that, rebuilding it heavily. We've done some Day of Caring up there where people volunteer to do various projects. We're always appreciative of that. Even had a Boy Scout come and build a kiosk up there. So what's next? These people want to move in. That's Tara, myself. Yeah, I'm Smokey the Bear. And our 3 daughters. The state ended up just introducing the Centennial of State Parks. Really fascinating, great book of all the state parks in Connecticut. I'm sorry about, really touchy. And to think that you're always within 20 minutes of a state park, that's pretty good. That's really good. So one of the reasons I was up there, I'd gone up with Tara and our 2 oldest girls, and signed in because Highline always had a sign-in book. So you always knew who was there. And so I signed in and I said I was an architect and do a lot of restoration work. And Catherine, who was the co-president at that point, said, we need a little kiosk. And I was thinking this little maybe 8-10 foot square kiosk that they could open up and it's their gift shop. No, she had bigger ideas. And one of them is to get a road down to 185 so they could have public access, because the state park is the only state park in Connecticut that's hiking only, and it's free. That's okay. So you can see she had big ideas. We've had events up there for the Friends of Connecticut State Parks. Some of these people have been on parks boards for years, never been up here. Just couldn't get up there. Had German wine, German beer, German food. This was in the garage. Back to the hops. And again, some of the events we do, the Tower Toot, Hike to Mike, there's almost the original sketch that she had. And we have people asking people to prom, asking people to marry them, and getting married. We've had brides walk up, white dress, ready to go. Questions, comments? Anybody awake?
Still hike up on?
Yes.
Is there an easier way in? Long ago, I hiked up about half an hour. On service road or something?
There's a road. Yeah, there's a road up there, but it's gated. The state doesn't allow anybody up there. Even as a board member, it's getting harder and harder. Probably the easiest way as far as incline is coming up from reservoir number 6. There's a back way up there. It's a little bit longer, but easier on the legs. There's really 3 ways. There's coming up from the reservoir, up from 185, and you can go from, I think it's Ridgebury, in Avon side, not roadside. Yes.
I know the spire is back, it's been back for like 10 years or so, but when did it fall last?
I don't know. I've been there 25 years. The spire's been back before that.
What do you mean, top of the tower?
Yeah, the cupola.
The big spire on the top
Not
is,
very local, so.
yeah, I've been here for over 30 years, and maybe 15 years ago? It hadn't been that long.
Well, there's actually, you're talking in there a bunch of different terminologies because
Big pointy thing at the top.
there was a very pointy thing there because there was an antenna up there for WTNH, which is the Times. That was during the Times era. They took that down along with the cupola back then and never put the cupola back up.
I think we're talking about the same thing in the cupola, because there's lots of renderings of the tower without that big pointy thing. And then, like I said, I thought it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago that the big pointy thing finally made its way back.
No, that was the cupola. We made sure the cupola went back up. We built one, yeah. And then 2023, we got the light back up. So,
Thank you.
sure.
So, Highline bought the land from who? Like, why would someone buy that land from that hill, and where?
I don't know who was the original owner. He bought it in pieces over the years. When he was 65, he and Louise were up there, and he sat her down and said, "Someday I'm going to build a castle here for you." Sorry, Tara.
So the house that you showed us that is on Prospect in Hartford, that's where they lived, and then they moved into the tower.
That was just their summer residence.
What was their summer residence?
The tower was.
The tower was just their summer residence.
Yeah.
Didn't know that, okay.
Yeah, sorry. And we have so much memorabilia, it would scare you. I mean, just so much. There's only so much I can cover. But back in Mark Twain's era, Mark Twain and Joseph Twitchell, who was his buddy from Asylum Hill Congregational Church, would walk from Mark Twain's house up to the tower every other weekend and walk back. And they walked. Yes?
Now, when the family used it back in the day, they had road access to it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, actually, the first road in the state doesn't believe me, but I've got documentation. It's written documentation. It went from Montevideo, and it went straight in front of Montevideo building, Wadsworth House, between the house and the pond, and went on the north side of the pond, and then went through a big rock cut up to the tower, and whoever was living in Montevideo at that point. Montevideo is not only the name of the house, but the name of the road. Whoever was living there was furious and made him do a different road. So he had to do that as well when he built the tower. Yes,
What
Jim?
exactly did the U-Line company do? Do they import liquor, they distill it, do they have their own brand? I know they were a liquor business, I'm not sure how exactly.
They started, there's one shot I should have showed you. They started in Hartford, not only importing it, but then started making it. And not only the beer, not only the wine, not only the spirits.
Was he in that business in Germany before he got here, and that's how he kind of got into it?
No.
Huh.
His father was a restaurateur.
So that's how he ended up going into the hotel business, which then led to the
Yeah.
liquor business.
And one of the things I wanted to tell you, there's the difference between Highline and Hubeline is they really wanted, the company was growing so huge that they really wanted to differentiate themselves from the business, even though they owned it. So they had worked with a marketing firm, and they had 2 waiters. Had his cloth here. So I'm Hugh, and the other guy who was standing opposite him, I'm blind. Hugh Blind. That's how they got the name, from High Blind. That was 1875. Little tidbits, random tidbits.
How did they get into A1 steak sauce?
I don't know, but that was, during Prohibition, that carried them. I mean, we have one of the some of the ledgers from the company, and it was, Louise would go in there and grab $1 as pay, because no sale, no tax, no income tax, nothing, none of that. It was her money. She would just take it, and that's how they made their money. A lot of it money.
I always remember when I first came into the area, riding into Hartford on 84, and go around New Park Avenue, I said to somebody, "How we smell A1 steak sauce?"
Yeah.
There are restaurants, but
Yeah.
you never at 8 o'clock in the morning.
That was it. Yeah, we've got the recipe too. It's in one of the ledgers.
But you said their name, I thought you said their name was something else, huh?
High Blind is the family. Hugh Blind is the corporation. Even though there's the same owners, the correct Bavarian pronunciation is Hoy Blind.
So the name's the same, it's just different pronunciations of the same name.
But I know it is the Harvard Times Tower. Any other questions? Yes.
So it was built as the castle, but was it also used as an advertising stunt for the company? Ever?
Not that I know of.
That, and they connected that with the company that made beer, and they used that in some way as a,
I wouldn't.
maybe not stunt's probably
Yeah.
the right word, but as a symbol of the company?
I don't know, but if you asked me what my guess is, I would say no.
No.
Because back in 1875, they changed their name to differentiate themselves from the corporation. So they wanted to, I don't want to say not be associated, but it's just, they didn't want to be associated with a corporation. So, but that's purely a guess.
That it?
Yeah,
Any further questions?
thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay.
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town.
Bringing us together through local programming,
Education and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community.
Ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings.
And celebrating milestones.
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SEM receives less revenue.
Even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
Or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
Your schools,
and your government come together.